Welcome to the Haunted Hacker podcast number February version 4. This is my fourth episode of this month. And it's kind of crazy because we started out doing one episode a month and then it became 3 or 4 a week and just insanity. A little bit of news before we get started. I will be speaking in Atlanta, Georgia on the 30th of next month. At the TechStrong event, and we'll be doing some Android hacking with Android emulators, and it'll be a workshop. So it'll be some hands-on, and you'll walk away from that conference knowing how to exploit every Android phone. Other news, of course, the U.S. is standing by watching Russia potentially invade the Ukraine, and once again, the U.S. is sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. And it's all about natural resources, but we'll get into that on another episode, I'm sure. Today we have Fabrizio Di Carlo. I've known Fabrizio for a long time, at least 10 years. And we've kept in contact, and he's a very interesting guy. And I wanted to bring him on the podcast, talk about some things, and catch up. So Fabrizio, thank you for being on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. So it's a pleasure for me as well. How are you, Mike?
I'm not bad, man. It's been a crazy couple of years, I guess. I'm back in the States now, and it's interesting. Just put it that way.
It's a shame we didn't make in London, to be honest. So I really apologize for that. So
yeah, exactly. I've been following your career for quite a while. So why don't you bring us into cybersecurity? What brought you to cybersecurity, and kind of your journey and where you're at now?
Yeah, sure. So what brings me to cybersecurity? Mostly curiosity, actually. Mostly I'm trying to understand how things works and what is behind the things, really. So but you will understand a little bit more with my journey. So I started doing totally different things. I was doing SEO, I was doing user experience, and so on. And then at a certain point, I basically found myself without a job in Italy because IT in Italy is improving right now, but was not developed at the time. So we're talking about 10 years ago. I think Greg said the same thing last time he was there. So so I basically started as an analyst in a security company that right now is not existing anymore, was acquired. I grew up with my career. So I basically started as a support analyst, doing basically things from little company up to big enterprises. And I was really good at it, actually. And from there I started to explore different areas like working on malware analysis, doing a little bit of reverse engineering, exploring virtualization and things like that. So I grew up in my career, and then at a certain point I was like, hey, I want to step up in this direction. Is there any possibility? Is there any way that I can grow? Because you didn't recognize my merit. So it was the time it was the ransomware attack, one of let's say 2013, 2014, and I came out together with a colleague with a policy to prevent a ransomware attack on the endpoints, and the incident response took the merit of that, and I was like, okay, I'm fine with that, but give me the possibility to grow up. There was no possibility, and so I moved over. I went to the financial industry for a while, and yeah, it was really cool because it was like, oh my god, I was leading from a technical side of small team, so 10 people worldwide, was doing basically exploring different technologies from networking to endpoint to encryption and so on. And they gave me the possibility to grow up because at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, that's cool, but I want to I want to see the things in a bigger scale. I want to see the patterns. I want to see. I want to do things that prevent, that are proactive. And I realized that the only way to do that was climb the ladder and become an architect. So I became an architect. They gave me this possibility, and it's the best job in the world, man. The
Yeah.
best job in the world. Uh, and on a serious note, now it's and I'm doing that. So I was doing that for the insurance company. Then I move over to the German stock exchange. In the German stock exchange, the things became too political,
Right.
and it was the time for me to leave. It was the time that I was not learning anything. It was the time that my manager sent me a message like, "We gonna do information security," and I was like, "Hey, wait a second. My title is information security architect. We report to the team that is called Group Information Security, and you are not telling me that we gonna do IT security. So
That's
something is
scary.
wrong."
That's very
Yeah,
scary.
something is wrong. So it was for me the time to leave. I got few offers, some as a CISO, but I wasn't ready for that position. So I have to self-assess myself. I was like, I'm not ready for a CISO position.
Mhm.
And then I joined Greg and few other guys that are really nice in Calbi. So it's and then now the head of product and infrastructure security is a very fancy title. At the end of the day, I'm doing everything from analyst to engineering to architecture to head of infosec type of thing. So I'm sort of wearing different hats every day, and it's fantastic.
I mean, I think that wearing different hats every day keeps things interesting because it's never the same, and I really enjoy that too. There's been a lot of companies I've worked in financial as well, and it was a very interesting environment, very fast-paced environment, because it was one of the largest banks in America, and it's never dull. It's never a dull moment. But looking back at your career, you're fairly young, and the things that you've done are pretty amazing. And that's I've followed you for a long time because I have a lot of respect for people like you who come in the industry and just make waves. You don't settle.
Yeah, I started, I think was 14, 15. I started with Linux and playing around,
Right.
let's say it this way. And so now I'm 34, so it's overall, yes, I can complain about my career and
Mhm.
that, but I also had a lot of help from the community. So that's
Right.
why I also gave back from the community. So I was in the Dublin chapter for OWASP. Was one of the board members for OWASP. I mentor a lot of people or trying to. There were some episodes that were not really the best ones. I think you had similar situation. And so, yeah, at the same time, I think uh, this taking and giving back from the community is what actually help people to grow. I'm one of the examples probably, and I think it's really important to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the key to success is giving back to the community, and the way that I gauge my success in my career is not by what I do and my successes. I gauge my success based on the people that I mentor and the people that I help and their successes. When I help somebody and then I see them later on, they've got like a management position. It makes me feel good because I knew that I gave back to that person and contributed to their advancement. And I think that's what the community is all about. A lot of people lose sight as to what we're here for, and it's a global issue. Cybersecurity is a global issue, and we're all one family. But I think that people get caught up in the money or the politics, and they lose sight of the fact that we're in it together. And that's what I try to embody in people, is the fact that, yes, we all work for different companies, but we're all one family. It's just one big community. And I've seen the best out of the community, and I've seen the worst out of the community. But I think that's with any industry, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, as you said, so we are one family, and that's actually what I'm trying to explain every time. So, independently, if you are, I don't know, a governance guy or a pen tester or whatever, at the end of the day, we are basically trying to reach the same goal. So it's we can be even in different countries, and this country has a very interesting geopolitical situation. I don't care. So it's that goes over politics.
Yeah, and I pride myself in the fact that I don't limit myself to a certain country of contacts or even a certain continent. I've got contacts like you in Germany. Hennemeyer from Darktrace, he's in Holland. It's all about diversity, I think, and not just male and female or race, but countries and regions of the world. I think it's really important that we get those views from everybody to make cybersecurity better. So you're at ScoutBee now, and one of the things that I learned about ScoutBee is that you guys focus a lot on AI and machine learning, and I think it's fucking fantastic. So tell me a little bit about ScoutBee and what you have going on there.
In the meantime, I have this amazing one. So it's I know it's a little bit too early in your time zone, but here it's almost 5. So
hey, it's good enough, man. It's afternoon, right?
Afternoon, yes. Plus today 16, so it's the International Shiraz Day. So it's
nice.
One of the startup I have is about wine. So it's I'm a big advocate for wine. But
awesome.
Coming back to your question about ScoutBee, ScoutBee aims is really trying to become the Google for supplier and for supply chain, but not the one that we are familiar with, but with the physical one. So we have very important customers. So some of them are public on the website, so I can mention them. So like Unilever, like Audi, and few others. And yes, we are pushing for the machine learning. So imagine you are an automotive company. You want to basically to develop a new prototype, and rather than having a supply chain or having your supplier that is giving you a piece in 3 months, we can give you 4 suppliers that will give you the same piece in 3 weeks. And probably even cheaper. So that's what we are aiming to do. We are quite successful. Today is 7 years that we are in the market. There is the birthday going on in Berlin. So it's we are doing fine. We are doing fine. And what we are trying to do also with the information security team is leveraging the ScoutBee capabilities for our own purpose. So imagine the situation between Russia and Ukraine, for this situation that is going on. I won't comment on that. I'm a little bit biased on that, so I won't comment.
Me too.
But it's if you're using third-party services like that are based or have some ties with Ukraine, a war or a possible situation, a possible escalation of the things may actually happen, may actually create some disruption. So I was speaking with a colleague in a big financial company, with a former colleague in a big financial company, and they said that they are not capable to understand what kind of suppliers they have ties with Ukraine. They know that they have, there are some, but they are not able to find which one. So we want to leverage this the capabilities of ScoutB also for our internal needs. And I think that's the best use case, for example, that I can think of.
Yeah, and with the pandemic, I mean, we saw the supply chain and transportation and everything kind of affected pretty heavily just because of the pandemic. So having that type of learning as far as supply chain and being able to look at the next best option, I think is really important. So with the artificial intelligence and machine learning, do you guys use like the Bayes algorithm in order to base that machine learning or AI on top of, or how does that work? And you may not be able to talk about it because it may be proprietary, but I thought I'd ask anyways.
Yeah, there are certain things that, well, first of all, I don't know, I'm not a machine learning expert, and as well, let me tell you that we are using different models, we are using different machine learning algorithms. Right now, we are in a major rewriting on some of the applications, some of the key applications. So very soon we will have a new infrastructure, new capabilities, and we will be more powerful in that regards.
Gotcha.
More scalable. I'm happy because I joined in the right time where this transition happening, and I gave my contributes, which is amazing. But as I get, I prefer not entering into detail because everything I'm going to say may be wrong.
Yeah, right. Right. So, I've looked at your career and the choices that you've made as far as which company you go to, which industry you go to. And I have to say that you've made some pretty intelligent decisions when it comes to companies. I've looked at some of the companies you've been with and how successful they are and where they're at now. And, hats off and much respect to those decisions. I think that a big part of cybersecurity and people's careers and success in their career has to do with those decisions that they make and when they realize it's time to move on to the next job. And I've done a little bit of analysis, and it looks like people in our industry in cybersecurity usually stay at a job for about a year and a half until they move on to the next one. I'm guilty of that as well. But I think it's because of the technology advancing so quickly and new technology coming out. I think a lot of us try to stay on top of that. So how do you stay on top of the new technology, maybe some of the new security trends?
Well, about the changes in my career, they were pure luck. So it's
I don't believe that, but that's okay.
No, it was pure luck. Because, I effectively never paid attention to, I don't know, how critical is supply chain before joining ScoutB. I mean, I never considered that. So that's why I said pure luck. But how I keep updated. So I have, of course, my feed and so on, but I think mostly really what is networking again. It is I try to spend at least 20% of my time in research and development. So right now is I'm playing or I'm trying to explore the world of non-fungible token. I'm really curious about that world and also the possibilities for the future. So I saw one example was one open source company that was giving basically the library to use NFT as a subscription model. And I think that's one of probably the smartest use of NFTs. But other than that, really just chatting with people, going to a conference. I mean, I will speak in few conferences this year, and for me, it's mostly an occasion, first of all, to give back, but also to keep updated. So and I'm lucky enough that I'm reading a lot. I'm reading a lot. So one example about the transition in my job. So it was 2017, and I a copy of this book called Zero Trust Networks. I was like, oh, that's a very interesting topic. So it's started to make research. I ended up making my master degree thesis on it, and in the meantime, I got introduced to John Kinderberg, that is considered the father of zero trust. And from there, basically, I'm speaking to few conferences around the world about zero trust. So it's and of course you keep studying, you keep research. So at the end of the day, it's just reading, keep informed, networking, and everything comes together. So I'm playing a lot with home automation right now, for example. So it's and yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to keep me updated and not fall into, okay, the most boring side of our job.
Yeah. I think complacency is a big factor in our industry too. A lot of people get complacent and they don't advance with the technology and they get left behind. So I try to encourage people to stay on top of research. Do home research. People coming into the industry and they're new and they don't know all the ins and outs of the industry. I always tell them learn, never stop learning.
Yeah, and pandemic was fantastic for that, because a lot of companies gave the material for free, certification for free. I think I got most of the certification, like 10 or 15 during the first year of pandemic. So I mean, it's pretty cool way to keep updated. So it's just study for the certification. If you don't have the means, do not do certification. It's also a good way. So it's
Yeah, absolutely. So I was supposed to speak in Frankfurt at the Cloud Expo in May. Unfortunately, I can't leave the country. But yeah, you get in Germany, they have a lot of really interesting conferences. I think the Cloud Expo is probably one of the more interesting I've seen. But I think, when we get to a certain level in our career that we have information to share that's valuable, I think it's really important for people to actually get out and speak. And I know that you do a fair share. I was watching a video earlier before we start talking. You were giving an interview about zero trust. And it was a really interesting interview. And zero trust is an interesting topic. I know that that's been, a buzzword in certain circles for a while now. And there's a lot of topics and trends that are evolving as we speak. And one of them is ransomware. And I know that you've done some malware reversal and some malware analysis. And that's one of my passions as well, is reversing malware. So why don't you give us just a brief overview of your view of ransomware and where we're at as an industry and where you think it's going?
So ransomware, unfortunately, is something that is going around for a decade. I mean, it evolved over the time, but it's going around for a decade, and the attackers keep them being very, very proficient in doing that. I mean, right now we are talking about ransomware as a service, and I have to say that the cost is really cheap.
Yeah.
You think why I don't do that? I mean, aside the legal implications, so, but now, joking aside, I mean, while ransomware attackers are keeping evolving, I noticed though that most of the breaches that happen in the ransomware are really, so how the way how ransomware enter into the companies are effective, quite simple. So it's I mean, we are talking about I was reading some statistics time ago, and we are talking about 80% of the times is things like Cobalt Strike. And we know Cobalt Strike is going around for a while. So I mean, just do that, just protect against that, or other things was like
Proxy shell.
Proxy shell, or I don't know. So very stupid things. So now I don't remember in top of my mind how was the ranking, but and that's why, coming back to your previous question, why I moved to Scoutbeats, why I joined Greg in Gex. So full disclosure, Greg is my boss. So, but and I'm a big fan of him from before he hired me. But I mean, what is let's say his approach to security is really close to mine. So let's focus on fundamentals. Let's focus on protecting the stuff, and then everything that is on top it's basically is amazing, because I see a lot of companies got breached by ransomware, that for example are certified ISO 27. Fantastic, yeah, that's okay. Then you ask, okay, what about the asset inventory, or what about, do you have the list of applications? So it's and they don't have that, so it's so I while I think the technologies and also the attackers going are evolving, we are really being regressing, let's say, in this way. We don't think about the fundamentals. We think mostly about certification, most about the new fancy tools with all the lights going on. So
right, and that, I think that's the biggest problem. So I've done a lot of incident response in the past, I guess, 6 months, and 90% of those incidents I'm researching and analyzing and cleaning up after usually involve something very easy and simple, like patching a pulse secure VPN. You know, just little tiny things that are common sense, but people fail to do them. And that's giving the attackers the opportunity to enter into the network, and next thing you know, have ransomware. So we use the term ransomware as a service, which is very interesting. That whole economic model and that whole environment is really interesting. But now we've seen ransomware as a weapon, you know, Russia using it against the Ukraine and the Ukrainian government. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see a lot more critical industries affected by ransomware as a weapon. And that's scary because, you know, if we can't protect on a very basic level the companies that you know run infrastructure, if we can't patch, if we can't control the security in a small company, how are we going to do it as a country? And I think the Ukraine got the first taste of that, as to, you know, the world is not ready for ransomware as a weapon. And that was one of my predictions for this year. Was I think ransomware is going to evolve into a weaponized digital weapon, and it is going down that path. And I think it's really scary. You know, just watching what's going on between the Ukraine and Russia, it's a very politicized environment. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of people who are, you know, emotionally tied to it. And I don't mean to, you know, minimize that. I do have family on both sides. So it's a really tricky situation. But I think we're seeing a lot of trends that are starting just in this situation. When you look at the hacktivists Stop the Train going to Belarus, when you see, you know, Russia hitting the Ukraine government and the banking systems, locking out banks. I mean, literally yesterday, there were people in Ukraine who couldn't access money because the banks were getting attacked with mad denial of service attacks. So I think as an industry, we're going to start seeing a lot more drastic things happening this year based on geopolitics. What are your thoughts on geopolitics? I mean, you don't have to take a stance either way, but, you know, what do you think about that environment and how we're getting politically involved in cyber attacks?
It is a very good question, a very complex question as well. So let me give you a bit of historical consideration. So I mean, as you said, so one of your prediction was the ransomware as basically as a weapon for a country, but effectively that was not the first case. I mean, think about Stuxnet, where basically Israel and US allegedly attacked Iran. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. There was actually a nice book on this topic. So if you didn't read, I suggest read, or for your followers, I suggest read, which is "This How the Economy World Ends." I think was the title. Not so sure, but I can confirm them by a post on LinkedIn, and that actually was very detailed on that. So it's. Still think was very US centric, but was really detailed on basically on the black market, the exploit market, and things like that. And again, we are talking about on let's say. Yes, these exist and all countries are working on that. I mean,
Yeah.
US is working with NSA, there is North Korea, there is Russia, there is China, of course. So I mean, a lot of countries are working as a cyber weapon. I think Italy as well. I mean, Italy has the hacking team back in the time. Now there are a few other companies doing that. So
Yeah.
um, it is scary actually.
Yeah.
It is scary because you really are like, okay, I am a single individual. What can I do? If, for example, a country like, oh yeah, that's a good example because we were talking about that on LinkedIn when we were talking about Dubai and the tower. So it's, I mean, if you go to Dubai or to other countries, we have this tower that effectively are probing your phone and infecting. Now, it can be like for national security, but effectively they infected you. So, whatever it is, if you're a tourist, it means that they breach your phone and your phone is vulnerable. So, how you as an individual can protect that? That's scary, and I deal with that. I'm thinking and deal with that every day of my life, even with my family. So it's quite
It's
terrible,
a
actually.
very difficult topic too, because when you look at the countries that are involved, one of my pet peeves, and I don't know why people think this in the U.S. and why they tend to believe this, but a lot of people in the U.S. believe that the U.S. does not get involved in cyber war or cyber attack, and I have to completely set them straight. The fact that we're not unique. We participate just like everybody else. We have to participate. Everybody does, because if you don't, you fall vulnerable to those weapons. Um, the latest one that I took a look at with Jonathan Scott, he does a lot of cell phone hacking and stuff like that. One of the pieces of malware that we looked at was Pegasus from the NSO group. And so I want to say that Pegasus is also what Dubai was using to get into phones. And then you look at Obama when he was in office, and he actually infected the prime minister from Germany, I believe,
Yeah.
infected her phone and was eavesdropping on her. Um, it's a global battle, and the thing is, it's been going on for a decade at least, and it's just now coming to mainstream media. And it's funny when I tend to view multiple sources of information, right? So I watch Fox News, I watch CNN, I watch Sky News out of London. I have a Russian news channel, as well as all different channels from like Vietnam and China. And I do that because I want to get a world view of news. I don't want to be fed news. I don't want the government to tell me what they want me to know. And I think that's important. And even in cybersecurity, I think some of the topics that we debate on in cybersecurity, it's important to get multiple views of that data, because it's really easy for one person to take control of that data and tell you what they want you to know. But part of the reason for this podcast is to give a different view of cybersecurity and to be genuine and just kind of translucent and just say, hey, this is what we're seeing and this is a problem. And I think with ransomware, there's so many people who put their head in the sand. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to look at the fact that it's become a political weapon. And we're entering into a really scary new era of cybersecurity, and companies are just not ready for it. And I think that, hopefully we can spread some awareness as far as, the uses of ransomware and why people are not ready. And we saw the first death in the US due to ransomware in a hospital. And I think that's shocking, man. It's really shocking. Like you said, it's scary when you look at your family and you look at where we're going as an industry. It's in ransomware. I think it's going to make some big changes.
Guys, I think I lost you for a minute or so. And now I have a wait. Now I have an audio issue.
I can hear you just fine.
Oh yeah. I can hear you now, right now.
Yeah. So I've never experienced that before, but the entire application just closed, like automatically closed. It was so strange.
Wow.
Yeah.
Someone is ghosting you.
Right.
No. But, I mean, coming back to what you were saying, actually, that's why I think attribution in incident response is one of the most difficult things. I mean, I'm thinking about things some very interesting attack like SolarWinds. Was last year. So, and it was so well architected,
Yes.
so well done that you think, I trust the guys that do forensic there, but if someone was capable to do that, how can you be sure that they even didn't modify the artifacts on about SolarWinds? So that's why I have to say that attribution, they have to be done with a little bit of grain of salt, and also taken with a bit of grain of salt, because it is really, I think, was one of the most critical aspects of our profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just recently, Biden made a statement to Russia that if you attack the infrastructure through cyber means, it's an act of war, and there'll be prices to be paid. Whether he will back up that claim or that threat, who knows? But Obama said the same thing, and I think the world is coming to a point where that is considered warfare. And will be responded to with kinetic consequences. Like you look at Hamas and Israel. I just had a retired colonel of the IDF cyber unit on my podcast, and we talked about the whole idea of critical infrastructure being attacked and responded to in a kinetic way. And Israel was actually the very first country to do that. Hamas attacked them through cyber means, and they bombed the shit out of
my
Hamas.
God, yeah, I recall that. The video was impressive. Yes, I mean, I don't need to. I don't have to laugh, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, they literally tracked down the IP address to one building and just destroyed the whole building. They were like, fuck it, we're done. But I think the world's coming to that point. So you are working for a very good friend of mine, Greg Vandergast. Very, spoken, very vocal about what he believes in. He and I have spoken at many conferences together. We're actually from the same company agency, that our speaking agency. And he's a really great guy. We actually met at Sapphire conference in England, and we were sat at the same table together with the CEO and the former owner of the company. And it was me, him, and Kevin Fielder. We all became really good friends. So I have to say that you're very lucky to have Greg as a CISO, because he thinks out of the box. And I think that's really important. You either love him or you hate him. But I think the reason why is because he's so vocal and he doesn't think in traditional ways. And I totally respect that. So, you have a great opportunity with him. I think that's really cool. I'd love to see, the three of us on a conference at some time and talk about cybersecurity, because I think that between the three of us, the way that we look at things is much different than most people in the industry.
Yeah, so actually you mentioned also Kevin. So I mean, it's funny because when I was looking for a job a couple of years ago, I was still in Dublin at the time, and I was reaching out basically all the UK community. So it's I reached Kevin, I reached Greg. No, probably that was a little bit more than 2 years ago, was probably 3. So, but I was mostly looking for mentoring from their side. So again, I got mentoring from Greg in a different way. So it's, but yeah, no, I have to say, Greg is. It's not easy to work with him. I mean, I'm calling him every day, so it's because there is a lot to do, and but at the same time, it's amazing. So yes, I have to say, yes, I feel myself very lucky to have this opportunity. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the European cybersecurity community is really impressive. When I was over there, I just recently came back late last year. And when I was over in the UK, I have to say the people I met were amazing. And everybody's excited about cybersecurity. Here in the US, the industry is very saturated and it's very, vendor specific and we don't have quite the community that the UK has. So, in Europe, you guys are very lucky to have that community, that tight knit community where everybody knows everybody by 1 degree of separation. And I think it's really cool.
Yeah, UK and so I travel for quite some countries. I work in Poland. I work in Italy. I work in Poland, Dublin, and now Germany. So German, yeah, I would say there is the more corporate kind of scene and the more underground. So the underground scene, which is really active in Berlin with the CCC and the different camps. Yeah, that's really cool. It's really nice. UK is probably the best mix because you have the corporate, you have the underground. They are all together, which is fantastic. So and the networking that you can do within the UK community, it's quite amazing. Polish scene is growing and it's growing fast and great. I have to say, there are a lot of companies really active either in hiring and conference research. So it's really impressive the thing that is in all Eastern European part. So.
Yeah, when I was a kid, one of my first colleagues that I worked closely with maybe some illegal hacking that got me in trouble, was from Poland, and we stayed in contact for a very long time. And the hacking scene in Poland is just absolutely amazing. And to be honest with you, like the U.S., we do have an underground scene. It's not what I've seen over in Europe. And I think a lot of it has to do with, like, especially Poland. I think a lot of those circles, when you look at the former Soviet Union before the fall of the Soviet Union, there were a lot of computer scientists who were employed by the government. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, those scientists left because they needed a job and the government was no longer supporting them. And a lot of those guys went to different countries. And I think that's why you see a lot of Slavic countries with a lot of hacking groups that are involved. So yeah, I really enjoyed it there, and it was a great opportunity for me to meet a lot of people. And the technology they have in the UK is just really interesting. Max Hennemeyer, I keep mentioning him from Darktrace. I went to Cambridge to meet with him, and he's a really interesting guy. He was one of the early members of Triple C, the Computer Chaos Club. So it's really cool. Like, there's a lot of history there. So, Fabrizio, it was awesome having you on. I really enjoy it, and
we should do more often, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to come on and maybe help me co-host sometime, I think that would be fabulous. That way we get both the European view and the American view of what's going on. I think
definitely.
I think I'd be pretty well balanced. So give my best to Greg, and good luck with ScoutV. I know that you'll be a success there as usual. And if you ever need anything from me, let me know. And I do really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, and anytime. So just let me know when you want me, so I can bring also. You mentioned Hobby a few times, so let me go a little bit of advertisement. So we do gigs in a different way. We are not only doing the gigs in more technical way, but we also have different perspective from, for example, from the human factor. So
Mhm.
we have one of the probably the leading research in human factors that is a discipline taken from the aviation industry. So we do things in different way, and I would love to talk about more probably with Robin, because Robin, she's the expert in that in that field. So definitely we should do that.
Awesome. Why don't you talk to them and see if we can arrange an interview between the three of us and just talk solely about Scout Bee, because I think it's really interesting. If you get a chance, look at the platform called Jenny. So Jenny is out of London, and it's a platform that uses machine learning and AI to find cybersecurity vendors and match companies with vendors for specific needs. So it's really interesting. Falls along the same type of lines maybe, and the two companies could probably learn a lot from each other. With that, I'm going to say farewell, and I'll definitely be in touch. And good luck, man.
Thanks a lot, and wish you a nice day. See you.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
See you. Cheers.